As many of you know, I consider Ramana to be my guru. And many of you will know I encourage other people, such as yourselves, to consider taking him as your guru. Be open to that. Be open to his presence, his teachings, the truth that he is, and the truth that he shared and continues to share. But when we abide in silence, in the heart, as our true self, we are having a one-to-one session with Ramana. We are meeting him in person, in that secret place within. The door to that secret place is always open, and the key to unlock the door is always in our hand. From a practical point of view, we can say, from a purely practical point of view, we can say, the choice is yours. Do you want to go into that room and abide with truth? Or do you want to carry on playing with Maya? Maya desperately wants you to play with her. Ramana, the self, he doesn't mind either way. The point of this meeting is just for you to set up, just to help. I'm like the middleman. I can help arrange or point you in the direction of a one-to-one with Ramana. Once you get the teaching, you don't really need me. You don't really need the middleman. The middleman can get in the way. You know, like an agent, always trying to take their, whatever it is, 10%, 20% or something. So when you're here in this meeting, that invitation is there. I hope you know that. That invitation is there for you to abide as the self. If you read the Advaita teachings, the traditional Advaita teachings, the traditional Advaita Vedanta teachings, the Vedanta teachings, incidentally, they're all based upon the Upanishads. The Upanishads are the most important scriptures for Vedanta. Vedanta just means Upanishads. Vedanta literally means the end of the Vedas. Anta means the end. And the Vedanta means the end of the Vedas. And the Upanishads are these texts, these scriptures that deal with self-realization and liberation, freedom from suffering. And these texts have been added to the end of the Vedas. So Vedanta literally just means the Upanishadic, sorry, did I say that? The Upanishadic, I think that's right. The teaching of the Upanishads, there you go. Saves me saying that word. The Upanishadic teaching. And there are many, many Upanishads. There are a few main ones, but there are many, many Upanishads. You can spend many, many years, some would say many lifetimes, studying these scriptures. There's so many of them. And they're written, some of them were written so many centuries ago, it's difficult to interpret them. But when you read them, you see the teaching is very simple. One of the shorter Upanishads and one of the earlier Upanishads is called the Gena Upanishad, K-E-N-A, Gena Upanishad. And it's a relatively short Upanishad, a few pages long. And at the end of the Upanishad, the student asks the teacher, teacher, tell me more about this teaching. And the teacher says, I've told you everything. I've told you everything already. And then there's a final line or final verse in the Upanishad where some of the teachings are summarized, and then the Upanishad ends. So when you read the Upanishads, the teaching is very simple. This is the basic teaching. The basic teaching is this. First, you are the self. You're not the body-mind, you're not limited. You're the unlimited, indivisible, one without a second, non-dual, perfect, ever-present, blissful, innately blissful, naturally blissful self. That's the first basic teaching. Second basic teaching in the Upanishads is abide as the self. The first teaching is a description. You are the self. It's pointing out something to you. The second aspect of the teaching is something you have to do. It takes effort. You've got to apply yourself. It takes practice. The Upanishads say all that too. So it takes effort. You have to apply yourself. Constant, unceasing effort, the Upanishads say, to abide as the self. To be what you are. That is the true courage. Courage is not, I don't know, abseiling off a very tall building or valiantly marching into war. Courageous as that may be. The real courage is to abide as the self. And of course, we have to understand what that means. So the Upanishads they tell us what that means. They explain to us what that is, what it is to abide as the self and what it isn't, what the self is and what the self is not. So to abide as the self is the same as what I was saying before, is to have this one-to-one, this personal meeting with Ramana. Any of you want to meet Ramana? If you do, you ever fancied meeting him one day, seeing what he's like, shaking him by the hand, greeting him, thanking him, you can do it. And if you don't want to do it, that's fine too. No pressure. He's not needy. Not like our friend Maya. He's always trying to get your attention, seduce you, and keep you away from what you are. Doesn't want you to discover the truth. Now, of course, I trust that you are taking what I'm saying about Maya and things like this in the right way. You're not taking it too literally. You're seeing it for what it is. It's a teaching. It's a characterization. It's not a philosophical truth. I hope it's a helpful analogy that you can see the truth in, and you can see the truth in the analogy. You can also maybe see where it's not a watertight, 100% watertight analogy. It doesn't always work. So I trust that you will have the ability to adapt the teaching for you, for your circumstances. It's not the kind of teaching, for example, where you can argue about, oh, right, Tom said Maya is like this. Oh, no, the other day, Tom said Maya is like that. Oh, well, which one's right? Let's have an argument about it, that kind of thing. You know? That's not what these teachings are about. And these teachings really start to work when you already have certain insights. You already realize that while the world, or Maya, can give you happiness, and there are many apparently rewarding things within this world. There are. And I wouldn't want to deny that. But there can come a realization that none of these worldly things are liberating. And therefore not wholly satisfying. And then we develop an interest in that which is real, that which is unchanging, that which is continuous, ever present. That may not seem infinite at first. It might just seem like a background of presence, which isn't necessarily infinite. It just feels like a background of presence. But when you pay attention to it, when you dwell in it, when you become one with it, you discover its infinite nature. But if you remain in Maya, you do not. You do not discover its infinite nature. You do not discover its bliss. You do not discover everlasting life, eternal life, which is life as the self. So again, the invitation is to be with Ramana. It's the same teaching of the Upanishads, the Upanishadic teaching. And it's the teaching that's in your heart. So I often say, if we destroyed all these texts, if we destroyed all the Upanishads and we took away Ramana's teachings, etc., etc., If you listen to your intuition, your heart, it will take you to stillness and it will take you to the self. Because these teachings are inscribed in our hearts. And this is where the Upanishads came from. They were revealed. They were revealed scriptures. They were revealed from the heart. And they were passed down from generation to generation, orally, verbally. And then later they were written down. But these are the timeless, eternal teachings. Doesn't matter if you destroy them, they always come back again because they're in our hearts. They're a part of what we are. So we don't have to force the teaching. You know, we can sometimes, if we're trying to practice too much, we can sometimes force it. We can be a bit natural. We can be easy with it. You don't have to jump into the deep end and become an Olympic swimmer on day one. You can just, if you wade into the shallow end of the pool and take your time, you probably end up making more progress. But take the time to turn away from Maya gently, and again, gently, with ease. Nothing too forced, nothing contrived, which is actually more ego. You just abide as a self, abide as what you are. Thank you. So remember, we don't worry too much about the middleman. Cut the middleman out. Abide as the self, become free. You're already free. You're already the self. That was the first part of the Upanishadic teaching. You're already the self. You're already that. That's what you are. Tattvamasi. That thou art. Tattvamasi. You're that. The middleman, like me, is just there to remind you, help you, guide you, whatever. You got it? I hope that makes sense. If you become too into the teacher, then you are in Maya. But the teacher and the teaching are the one part of Maya that point the way out of Maya. Maya means illusion. So if you're paying attention to Maya, then pay attention to the teacher and teaching. But if you're able not to pay attention to Maya, which you're always able to do, as I said, the key to the room in which Ramana is in is always in your hand, and the door is always open or unlocked. So it's always available is the point. Remember Shankara in the text Vivekachudamani, he says, it's good to hear the teachings. It's better to think about the teachings as well when you're not hearing them. But best of all is to abide as the self. It's infinitely more important to abide as the self. In the text of Vivekachudamani, that's called Nirvikalpa Samadhi. He says it's infinitely better to be in Nirvikalpa Samadhi. You're abiding as the self. Infinitely better than hearing the teachings, thinking about the teachings, contemplating the teachings. Infinitely better is to abide as the self. This is what the teachings tell us. This is the value of the teachings. Isn't it beautiful? Okay, I'll say one more thing and then I'll open the meeting up if anyone has any questions or anything they want to say. The last thing I'm going to say is the negative aspect of the teachings, which is sometimes good to hear, which is that if you don't follow the teachings, and you can discover this yourself, if you don't follow these teachings, you will continue to suffer. So if you've got a carrot and a stick, the carrot is the incentive, the positive incentive. The positive incentive is abide as a self. You'll meet Ramana in person. You'll be able to receive the instruction of the greatest teacher in the universe, the self, your own true self. And you'll attain infinite life, eternal happiness, heaven on earth, heaven. The stick, the carrot and the stick part of the teaching is, if you don't do it, you will suffer. If you don't turn away from a Maya and abide as the self, you will suffer. And you will see this for yourself. You'll see that nothing else works and everything else perpetuates the ego. Which is why this teaching has remained so simple and so consistent for hundreds and thousands of years. Literally. It's because it's the teaching that works. But I leave that for you to think about and decide for yourself if that's true for you. That's what I feel to be true. I'll let you see what you think is right for you. Sometimes we're not ready for that teaching, or that teaching isn't right for us right now, and another teaching is better for us right now, it seems. But the sooner we can go to self-inquiry and abide as the self, the better. As soon as we start to do that, we're just starting to walk slowly towards our destination. We're now walking slowly to our destination. If we don't do that, then we're not walking towards our destination. So we're delaying the inevitable,